I'm going to be talking about the Rialto Theater in South Pasadena, 1019 and 1023 Fair Oaks Avenue. The same year the Aztec opened up, 11 miles away, another Route 66 monument opened its doors. The Rialto Theater opened up in 1925, and the first movie shown there was What Happened to Jones, starring actor Reginald Denny. The Rialto is a cousin
2 episodes in a row for him.
Yeah, I know. Different guy, same name. The Rialto is a cousin to 2 other important LA theaters, the Vista and the Alex in Glendale, both of which were opened within the same couple years of the Rialto. The Rialto was one of the many single-screen theaters opened by C.L. Langley, president of the West Coast Langley Theater Circuit. The same theater chain opened up the Alex, named after C.L.'s son Alexander. Their theaters would share silent movies, plays, and vaudeville shows. West Coast Langley later became Fox West Coast Theaters, which is one of the biggest movie chains in Southern California for the next
the
couple
one in
decades.
San Pedro.
Yeah. The architect behind the Rialto was Louis A. Smith, who did many theaters for the West Coast chain. He designed the Vista Theater 2 years earlier. After the Rialto, he designed 2 more theaters in LA that were both eventually demolished. The Ritz Theater on Miracle Mile and the Beverly Theater in Beverly Hills. So the Rialto was commissioned by Langley, designed by Smith, and built by a man named William G. Reed in 1925. It cost $350,000 to erect. The Rialto stands as one of the best preserved theater of that original era. The Rialto opened in October, like I said, in 1925, and its gala opening, along with playing the Reginald Denny movie, they also had the world's premiere showing of a 1926 photoplay feature and 5 snappy vaudeville acts.
You keep really hitting the
vaudeville. My big 3 sources on this are an LA Times article by Frank Xiong, the Friends of the Rialto website, which had a wonderful timeline that I used, and the nomination form for the National Register of the Historic Places, which if every building had this form online, it would save so much time, because they're just like, here's everything that's historic about it. Here's what the building looked like. It like saved the day. So the Rialto is a 2-story theater made of concrete, brick, and steel. Its face is covered in painted stucco with a terracotta roof. The Rialto's sign on the exterior that runs vertically is said to be the original. The style is Spanish Moorish, and above the marquee there's some like paired arched windows which lend itself to like a Moorish Art Deco look. On each side of the central bay is a storefront. When it first opened up, it was meant to have like accompanying stores on the storefronts. One of those eventually became the Rialto Sweeteria, which is a candy shop. Hello, there's no, I didn't find out too much about that. I also didn't find any pictures. There's just like word of the 20s that there was a candy shop right attached to it, pretty much.
If you want to go a little further down the street, you can get a great candy shop at the Raymond's, Fair Oaks, Gaskell's.
What's that, like a block or 2 away? Then I can't. I simply can't do it. The Rialto rates were 30 cents for general admission. Loges seats were 40 cents, and children under 12 only pay a dime.
12-bit kids can get in free.
What are you, a dime kid? 5 cents. The original marquee was a 2-line reader board, but it was replaced in the 30s by a 3-line, 3-faced neon Art Deco marquee because the movies in the 30s had more words than the titles, just like the movies themselves.
They weren't just called Faust. They were all called Faust.
Nosferatu? Faust? The Golem? What are we watching tonight? The theater was built to accommodate 1,300 attendees.
1,300?
Yeah, it's a big theater. With room on the...
Hang on, there's robot boxing going on in my alley.
Chappie's over here.
Chappie's not a Chappie's a cop. I told you.
It can fit 1,300 people. There's like a ground floor, and then there's like the balcony. And the balcony is like massive.
So it's similar to the Alex Theater then. They have a balcony,
it's very similar. They're cousins.
Kissing cousins?
The interior has remained largely intact, and more of Smith's like Moorish design elements are used inside than outside. As the LA Times puts it, the interior is an irreverent mashup of Spanish Baroque architecture and Egyptian kitsch.
That's so funny that to throw the word irreverent followed by some of the least interesting words I've ever heard. It's a wacky mashup of whatever Ada kept telling me to say.
Spanish Baroque architecture and Egyptian kitsch. Abstract geometric design motifs. I'm getting better at it each time I say it. There's paintings all over the interior.
Advertising works.
Paintings all over the interior, but a Daily News article listed some of the things they saw in the paintings. On the lintel, there are some abstract patterns of leaves with a gargoyle mask with lighted eyes. A naked female torso with wings frames the organ chamber. An Egyptian...
Sure does feel my organ chamber.
And there's Egyptian-inspired winged sphinxes. All of these words are hard to say.
I mean, talk about irreverent. None of these have anything to do with each other. There's
also
a wolf howling at the moon.
There's Little Red Riding Hood, but she's coming out of a McDonald's. Inside, there are rows of like crown molding that surround the first level of seating as well. Described as beautifully. I'm like, I don't know how beautiful molding is. There's Moroccan-influenced ceiling fixtures and a chandelier. Those are beautiful. There's also the gilded niches, which is like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a little hanging decoration that protrudes out of the wall.
Like a sconce or something?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Sounds irreverent.
Sounds wacky.
That's rather irreverent.
The decorative art on the walls and ceilings are still there. The original red and gold house curtains are still there from the 1925.
Red and gold. That's nice.
That is nice, right? Also, because vaudeville was performed there, the stage is big, like 30 feet deep. And there's also dressing rooms and an orchestra pit, which is like my kind of theater, which has dressing rooms. How many comedy places have we done where there's a green room? I'm like, oh, green room. It's real now. I haven't been paid for this, but I'm a real performer now.
It's a designated place to freak out.
Yeah. We were at the Pack, and there was like the green room behind, but then we were still in that grimy-ass rat alley.
Yeah, because some other people... First off, I kept playing with the whip, and you told me to stop using the whip.
Yeah, I was begging you to stop using the whip because I knew you were going to hurt me or somebody else right before we went. I had to go on stage.
As I lassoed you by the ankles.
We were going to walk out, and I was like bleeding in the face. When the theater first opened, it would run movies all week, but with vaudeville shows on Thursdays and Sundays in addition to the movie. The Rialto stage was also the tryout area for new vaudeville talent for Fashon and Marceau, who I guess were like famous at the time, or if they're not famous, they're at least working consistently. A lot of people were like Franco and Marco.
The irreverent
duo. By 1921, a couple years before they opened the Rialto, they were part of the Sun-Kissed National Tour with the Sun-Kissed Beauties. That's a title of another episode.
I told you I watched San Fernando Valley, which was a Roy Rogers movie, and first of all, never in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah,
never, not filmed in the San Fernando Valley.
Really?
But they keep talking about, to go back to the San Fernando Valley. And the last 10 minutes is an extended dance sequence by Sunkissed of just like dancing oranges and people saying how great the San Fernando Valley is.
What were movies back then?
They were long commercials. Advertising works. And you would watch it over and over and over because it could fit on the marquee.
Sun-Kissed Beauties. I feel like bananas today. By the end of the 20s, vaudeville was replaced by twice-weekly live play matinees. But then vaudeville shows made a return in the 30s. Vaudeville would make a return in the 30s, but you won't believe who the Rialto got to be the musical conductor of all the live performances.
In the 30s,
live musical
Chopin.
A.F. Frankenstein from the Orpheum. They stole him from the Orpheum.
I was thinking of Frankenstein, but I was like, nah.
It's too easy. They got A.F. Frankenstein from the Orpheum, and he was now working at the Rialto.
They didn't so much get him as he was chased out of the Orpheum, and he was allowed to work in the Rialto.
They set the Orpheum on fire. Like, you looking for a new place? The Rialto had its own mighty Wurlitzer, an Opus 1142, which was there at the Rialto before they opened, like a month before they opened, and it was played during their opening night. It was later removed during a fire, and it was sold, and parts of it were scattered across the state. The council itself ended up in the South Pasadena Preservation Foundation.
Like dismantling a vampire?
God.
Burn the foot pedal.
It was donated later to the Friends of the Rialto in 2016. Mark Herman with the Los Angeles Organ Company graciously stored the console for them in May of 2020, which was this year. So the Wurlitzer is looking like it's going to start coming back into play. In 1929, the building closed down for 2 weeks to install state-of-the-art speakers to handle the new film phenomenon, talkies. So they spent $15,000 getting a Vitaphone, which is the disc part of that, and then the Movaphone, which is optical film sound synchronization. We're ready for talkies. Bring that Shirley Temple on.
Bring the Movaphone.
Yay, just in time to hear Hitler's speeches on the big screen, as shown in the
We'll hear this guy out.
Charlie Chaplin's not really handling comedy well anymore.
What's the punchline?
The first talkie shown at the Rialto was a movie called The Dummy. In the 1930s, there was a fire backstage. So of course, Frankenstein ran. Not true, but there was a fire at the Rialto backstage. So they closed it for a few months to deal with that. When they reopened, vaudeville and live plays closed, and they never came back. Fire purifies all. Around this time, the Rialto had a weird thing going on. So apparently, each year when the Academy Awards were announced for the Best Picture of the Year, it was the movie that was already playing at the Rialto.
Wait, say that again?
So when the Academy Awards were announced for Best Picture of the Year, whatever the winner was the movie that was playing at the Rialto.
By coincidence?
By coincidence. No, they planned it. They paid the Academy to have it win so they can get movies. Yeah, by coincidence.
Look, you say that it might have been some sort of elaborate scam. I would not be surprised at all. For how many years was that?
I think, like they said, 4 to 5 years through the 30s. Come 1930, and the theater is bought by a man known as the Banana King because of his success in the fruit distribution business. This is Dominique Jabbia, an Italian immigrant who amassed a fortune with bananas. He is known in local histories
as George of the Jungle.
So he bought, in San Fernando Valley, I think, he bought a ritzy country club called Midwick. Some say, the rumor is he bought it out of spite because the club members rejected his application for membership. And after a fire, the property was turned into single-family homes. Every country club must hate single-family homes. The Banana King maybe bought a country club because they wouldn't let him in. He says,
when you're the Banana King, what you say, banana goes.
I'm like, isn't that the name of the guy from the True Detective? But it's not.
The Banana King and the Pink Palace.
So anyways, this is the new owner. As it goes, we all know what the 30s means, the Great Depression. Everything slows down to a crawl, and by 1932, butts and seats dropped by 50% across the country. Theaters were closing en masse. The theater survives through it, though.
How are bananas doing?
That's all you can eat. Harry Belafonte wouldn't stop singing about them.
What Roy Rogers was to oranges, Harry Belafonte was to bananas.
Another fire hits the theater in 1971 and closes for a year. 1975, the Community Redevelopment Agency wants to rebuild downtown South Pasadena area. They want to put up like a business block, right? Like a mini mall kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So they want to tear down the Rialto to make way for 45 parking spaces. Knock down a beautiful historic theater for parking spaces. This city doesn't deserve history.
We've covered 4 things, and 2 of them were almost turned into parking lots.
Spaces. It doesn't go through, obviously.
The city could have had 90 more parking spaces if we only didn't have the Formosa Cafe.
Yeah. If we knock down Griffith Observatory,
we can park all those buses that take people to the Griffith Observatory.
The parking lot thing doesn't happen. A couple years later, it was leased by Kim Jorgensen, owner of the Parallax Theater System, which eventually becomes Landmark Theaters, which is the art movie house chain. Mm-hmm. In 1978, the city council approves city landmark status, and Rialto joins the National Register of Historic Places. Wow. Same year as the Aztec, too.
2 years.
2 of mine, yeah. People are still trying to knock it down through that, and the fight to preserve it really begins in the late 70s, just as they start showing Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Friends of the Rialto form as a committee in 1983, and they're really putting up a good fight. Around this time, the balcony closed, I think for good, and Landmark Theaters bailed out of the Rialto because of the popularity of videotapes. It struggles through the last few decades, and the last current running movie play there was the Simpsons movie in 2017. Although, I distinctly remember watching Rob Zombie's Halloween there, and it came out a month after the Simpsons movie. But maybe I'm remembering things
Did it
wrong.
win an Oscar that year, though?
Rob Zombie's Halloween won the Oscar.
Narrowly beating out the Simpsons movie.
Yeah. For the last showing for the Simpsons movie, it was said that only 200 people showed up, leaving about 800 empty seats.
Sad for the theater and for the Simpsons.
And the Simpsons movie. In the theater's last days, the Friends of the Rialto worked on trying to restore its decor. Volunteers restored murals, cleaned curtains, replaced light bulbs, and even held some events there. But despite this, the Rialto was run down and only loved by a few. Attendance through the years dwindled. In 2010, a chunk of the building fell onto the sidewalk, so they closed the building. They completely shuttered it for repairs. In June of 2014, the Jabia Family Trust began to accept bids for the property, and they received multiple offers for it, but because the Family Trust didn't set preconditions for the bid or sale, the new owner could really turn it into, and you can turn it into 46 parking lots parking spaces if you wanted to. The historic designation requires owners... What?
Inflation.
Yeah, we get one more parking space. Historic designation requires owners to keep historic properties in good condition and offers them some eligibility for grants and tax credits, but historical status doesn't restrict what type of business operates on that property, which is weird. It was bought by Isaac Shamoff, but he seems to have a good relationship with the Friends of Rialto. They gave him a tour, and he allowed them to hold 2 years' worth of fundraisers there. Since then, the Friends of Rialto really been fighting to keep the theater alive. They keep having like live performances, variety shows, Broadway musicals, a classic movie screening with live musical accompaniment. Restoration is still needed, and the fundraising didn't really get enough money for the Friends to have a chance at like getting a lease or even significant repairs. In 2017, Shamoff signed a lease with the Mosaic Church Group to use the Rialto space. The Friends
That's a really cool church.
Churches and their endless amount of money.
Have you heard the news? He has risen. Because there's a Mosaic in Hollywood, and I one time was there like on a Friday. I wasn't there, but I was driving by on like a Friday night, and it was as if it was like a mile down the street at one of the bars. There were so many young, cool people trying to get into this church. It was so weird.
It's very weird. Yeah. Nobody likes church, not even church. Not even God likes church. He doesn't show up.
Yeah. Where's he?
The Friends of the Rialto were working with the Mosaic Church Group on restoring the building and trying to get them to let the Friends use that for like different outside events. According to the timeline on the Friends of the Rialto site in 2018, they showed about 5 movies through the year, all classic movies: Back to the Future, Nacho Libre, La La Land, Ghostbusters, and Elf. In 2019, they showed The Notebook and Miracle on 34th Street. As of this year, if you want to call it a year, Shamoff says that he is handling the exterior renovation, and the Mosaic Church Group is responsible for the interior and other improvements. No word on what we could expect from this point, but the Rialto is still standing, which is, at this point, is something. It's a beautiful building, inside and out. Plenty of movies were filmed there. Kentucky Fried Movie. The
Really?
Phil Around sketch, where they 4D experience.
Oh, yeah.
That's Rialto. Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Rocketeer, Radio Flyer.
Which also also has I would assume has sort of a feel around moment, and some of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies have a feel around moment.
The Player, The Thing Called Love. I thought it was called This Thing Called Love, but
I thought it was A Thing Called Love.
Scream 2 was filmed there. The Majestic, and most importantly, not because I love it, but because La La Land was filmed there, where they watched the movie together.
Oh.
The way that 500 Days of Summer had a bunch of people fetishizing Los Angeles, La La Land had the same thing. And so because of La La Land, the Rialto became a tourist destination, as did many other landmark places in LA.
La La Land.
The exterior was used in Thriller, the music video.
I thought it was a Thriller.
South Pasadena is a great place to walk around. I mean, you can hit the Rialto, the Fair Oaks Market, and Michael Myers' house in one walk. It's so beautiful and old. And if you give yourself enough time, you can see go to Gus's Barbecue for some of the best food I've ever had.
I think you're sponsored by Michael Myers' house and Gus's Barbecue. I don't know where these back alley deals you're making without me.
Different crowds. The Rialto could have been 45 parking spaces and a ghost in old photos, but because people fought hard to preserve it, a piece of our history, we still get it. If you love the city and its history, you have to do those things. There are so many places in danger of becoming another Trader Joe's or 45 parking spaces, and we're responsible as LA people, as LA history people, to try to fight for them and trying to save them from big corporations who don't give a care about them. So let's save the Old Town Music Hall. Let's save Bob Baker Marionette Theater. Let's save Rockhaven. Also, let's fight for more police accountability and redistribution of funds.
Peace in the Middle East.
Let's save the post office.
Free Tibet.
Let's do it. We can do it.
I wonder if all these places that are like we're going to turn into a parking lot, how about a compromise? Like if it's the Rialto Theater and they need to turn it into a parking lot, how about an indoor parking lot and you just take out the front, but like the structure is still there and you can park inside of it at the very least?
I mean, something.
If it's between that and like what we're sitting in right now, why not?